They tell you that there's two different methods in order, or like when you are solving with fractions. I personally am only going to show you one method. When I was in school, when my teacher would show me multiple ways to do it, it would confuse me. I'd have to like plug my ears. Like when she went over another way, do you guys kind of understand what I mean by that? Like they teach it one way and then teach it another, and I don't like it. I don't like method one. It says keep the fractions. I am well aware nobody likes fractions. So we are going to do the second way, which is clearing the fractions. So we're not going to keep fractions. And the first problem that we are going to solve together is this one right here. It says, what is the solution of 3/4 y plus 1/3 equals 5/12 or 5/12? So we are going to clear the fractions. Off to the left here, we're going to write out the steps on how to do this. So step one. If you have a problem that has fractions, or multiple fractions, I should say. If you have just one fraction, it's not so bad. If you have multiple fractions, that's when you've got to do this. First thing that you have to do is you need to figure out a common denominator. And remember that the denominator of a fraction is the bottom of your fraction. So you're going to find a common bottom number of your denominator. Now, when you're figuring it out, you've got to think of multiples. So what number can you get all of the denominators to be using multiplication? That's what it kind of means in order to be a common denominator. So in our little situation here, we have 3/4, 1/3, and 5/12. So we have a 4, a 3, and a 12. So what would the common denominator be between a 4, a 3, and a 12 using multiplication? What'd you say? 12. I can get 4 to be 12. I can get 3 to be 12, and 12 is already 12, so I don't have to worry about that one. So our common denominator is going to be 12. That's the first thing you got to do. And honestly, I think sometimes that's the hardest thing to do in all of this. So if you don't find that to be that hard, you're going to like this. Once you've figured out what your common denominator among your fractions is going to be, now what you need to do is you're going to rewrite the fractions with the common denominator. I'm just going to say CD for common denominator, so I don't have to write that word out. I'm getting lazy. So when you are taking your fraction and getting now I want to make my denominators 12, you have to use multiplication. And I'm sure you remember from fractions, whatever you do to the bottom, you got to do to the top. I know see you all remember. So if I have 3/4 y, if I want this 4 to be a 12, what do I need to multiply this 4 by to get it to 12? 3. So I'm going to multiply the 4 by 3 and the 3 by 3. And this fraction now becomes 9/12y. So I've got 12. Now I have a positive 1/3. So I'm going to put my plus sign there. So I have 1/3. 3 is the denominator. How do I get 3 to be a 12? Multiply by 4. So I'm going to multiply the bottom by 4 and the top by 4. 1 times 4 is 4/12 equals. Now this already has a denominator of 12, so I'm just going to rewrite it as 5/12. This is the best part, you guys. This is the biggest secret in math. I don't know if you've ever even learned this. Here we go. Step 3, the best step. Once you have common denominators, and of course I wrote common denominator out. Gosh darn it. Once you have common denominators, you can cross off the bottom of your fraction. They just disappear. So the bottoms of your fractions, once they have common denominators, the bottoms just disappear. So like in my problem here, the 12 goes away, the 12 goes away, the 12 goes away. And I'm left with 9y plus 4 equals 5. And guess what? You should know how to solve that. Should. See, fractions aren't so scary. We just can get rid of them. They're not so scary once you get rid of them. So like from here then, you would subtract 4. 9y equals 1. You get a junky number, of course, on this one. So you get y equals 1/9, which is a nasty decimal. So I'm just going to leave it as a fraction. Got rid of fractions to have an answer as a fraction. So these are the 3 steps that you're going to want to do today, because I don't know about you, but I've been doing this long enough to see that when kids see fractions, life is over, everyone freaks out. They're not so scary because you can just get rid of them as long as you can find a common denominator. We are going to do, maybe we'll just do one together, and I'll send you loose on one on your own, and then I'll get you your assignment. We don't really need to do a ton of these, I don't think. So if we take a look at 15, thinking about what we did up top here. Step 1, figure out a common denominator, because we have a bunch of fractions going on. What would the common denominator be between a 2, a 4, and a 4? 4. I see a lot of people on phones. I hope that you know what you're doing, and that when I let you loose, you don't have a ton of questions. Just be careful with that. So the common denominator is 4 because I can use multiplication to get all of these to be 4, and 2 of them are already 4, so that's a plus. So the only one that I need to worry about is this first one. What do I need to multiply the first fraction by? 2. The bottom by 2 and the top by 2. So that gives me 2x over 4 minus 3 over 4 equals 5 over 4. And then once they're all common denominators, those denominators just magically go away. And you're left with 2x minus 3 equals 5. And then from here, you should be okay. Add 3. 2x equals 8. Divide by 2. X equals 4. What do you think? Make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How many of you have seen how to solve with fractions like that before? Not too many. All of you have? Oh. I thought I was like going to make everyone see fractions in a different way. Okay, on your own, on the next page, I want you to do number 17. Try it out. So, to get a common denominator, you always, like, if looking at your 3 numbers here, because yes, this one does have 3 numbers, you have to think about multiplication, multiples. I can get 5 to be 20 by multiplying by 4. So then that gives me 8x over 20. I can get 10 to be 20 by multiplying by 2. And that gives me 18 over 20. What part doesn't make sense?
How you literally in the other one, you use the two numbers in a fraction to multiply, and this one you just pick numbers.
I didn't just pick, what do you mean? This one right here?
No.
This one right here? I got the 4, the 3, and the 12 to all be a 12. I didn't just I didn't multiply 4 by 3 because this was a 3. I multiplied 4 by 3 to get a common denominator of 12. It's all about what do I multiply by to get the common denominator. And here, if I want my common denominator to be 20, I have to figure out what do I multiply each of the fractions by, the denominators by, to get a 20. I'm not going to multiply 5 by 10 and 10 by 5 because that's not going to give me a common denominator with the very last one. You have 3 fractions, so you got to make sure that you get all the same. And this last one is 7 over 20. And now, because they all have a common denominator of 20, the 20s just all go away. So you have 8x plus 18 equals 7. So you subtract 18. 8x equals negative 11. And then you divide by 8. And you should get a negative 1.375. It's not that bad of a decimal. Okay, I'm going to do one more with you. We're going to take a look at 18 together because it looks a little different. And you need to be aware of what to do in this situation. So for 18, we have 2 equals 3t over 8 minus 2 over 3. So we don't have any common denominators, so we need to figure out what the common denominator would be. This 2 is not written as a fraction yet. How do I write 2 as a fraction? Go ahead, Shay. Put a 1 under it. So now I have, for my denominators, a 1, an 8, and a 3. And I have to think, what can I get a 1, an 8, and a 3 to be using multiplication? 24. 6, you can't get 3 to be 16. 3 times 6. You're saying 3 times 6. It's okay. It's okay. Now, if you would have said, I don't think anyone would have gone up to 48 would have worked as well because you can get them all to be 48. 24 is the smallest. So now I need to get all of my denominators to be 24. So to get the 1 to be 24, I have to multiply by 24. So that gives me 48 over 24 equals. What do I multiply the 8 by to get 24? 8 times 3. Now, I'm not multiplying it by 3 because this is a 3. That's just how I get a 24. So 3 times 3 is 9t over 24. Then you have a minus. How do I get the 3 to be a 24? Timesing by 8. So multiply by 8 times by 8. 2 times 8 is 16 over 24. So now the denominators go away. You have 48 equals 9t minus 16. And from here, you're back to a 2-step equation. Add 16. This one gives you a junky number too. 48 plus 16 is 64 equals 9t. Ew. And then divide by 9. So t equals 7.1 repeating.
Yeah.
Gross, but that's okay. So the hardest part is figuring out what that common denominator is going to be. And hold on. You've got to make sure that, every single one of these is going to be a little different. You've got to just really take the time to figure out what it is and then get that common denominator, cross them off, and solve.